shoot birds.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
again, we're creating these micro behaviors in another context that we're going to slowly chunk and build together and dump them into a job later. So what this exercise does, and the original application of the dopamine box was to counter condition food aggression. Because dogs see the hands as a competitor when they're coming to the food bowl. So what this dopamine box did is reverse the psychology to teach the dog that the hands are friendly because they're adding food to the environment. So instead of giving the dog the big jackpot, we're giving little bits and pieces at a time. The dog would eat and see the hands coming and wait for the prize to get dropped. So long story short, again, it's a long-winded explanation. We create a tremendous amount of vigilance to the box where we want the dog staring into the empty box. And a lot of times in the preparation for opposition reflex, when we do reward the dog with a handful of food, the dog's eating that food on a flat collar, not a prong, a flat collar, we start to add a little bit of gentle pressure, pulling the dog out of the box. And we see the dog go, I'm going forward. Because remember, some folks believe it's voluntary, some believe it's involuntary. Long story short, the dogs do that shit. So when you put that pressure down, they're gonna pull against it. So when we see that effort to stay in the box, I relieve pressure, add food. So the dog's vigilance and resistance to that pressure pays. So rinse and repeat over and over. We want to get to the point where they're doing it in the empty box. But here's where the e-collar can get paired into that. So as we put pressure on the opposition reflex with the flat collar and the leash, just as we relieve that pressure, I'm going to tap, boom, send the dog into the box, add food. So beginning that low stim, that tapping, and the dog, remember the mindset of the animal is to drive. I want to drive, and then boom, there's that tactile signal, and then the ability to go forward. So that signal comes, again, endorphins are flowing, there's dopamine flowing. That signal is linked to the release of those feelings and acquisition of the reward. It's at point blank. We're just pulling the dog a little bit away from the base of the box. And you rinse and repeat. That's one of my favorite ways to do that. I condition the prong the same way. Like I'll pull the dog just about out of the box in the flat collar, and they're like, gimme, gimme, gimme. I'll have the prong with the ring down, a little short tab, and I'll think fingertips toward the box, boom, let him go. So you're toughening the dog, you're preparing them, you're creating hardness where the dogs of yesteryear were hardwired genetically to have it. The modern dogs in my world, they don't have it as much. The one you saw today was a throwback. He's a fucking Neanderthal. But that as a whole, they're much softer, user-friendly dogs. And a lot of that has to do with women getting into dog sports and kicking our asses, bro. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I say it in every arena that I'm in, that women make far better trainers than men. Like we're the caveman, we can add the pressure, and there's a couple of reasons for this. Like in my era, like 30 years ago, if our own dog wasn't biting us, we thought it was a bitch. Like that's this stupid caveman mentality that we had. We've since evolved. And again, that global demand on dogs has changed the dogs, but the gals getting into like professional dog sports, and there's a lot of girls killing it in law enforcement, that those gals, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of women that could fucking put it on a dog when they need it. Trust me. I'm married to a gal who I really fell in love with. When I saw her put our horse in place, that got out of line. She striped his ass up and down the barn for getting too fucking pushy, and that's when like, I fell in love like my queen. Can really put it on. So I'm not saying that whatsoever. There's plenty of gals out there that can do it, but as a whole, they don't like the dog hanging from them. So they've created this user-friendly, handler-sensitive dog that's got gas, it's got horsepower, but the feelings get fucking hurt quicker. So if we don't have these systems in place to prepare the dogs for pressure, they're gonna fold. They're gonna collapse. So
And it's so important to where we're building the dog to where if somebody again is thinking like, how does this apply? Well, when we get into further advanced training, be it steadiness, retrieving, high level, whatever, fill in the blank, you don't want the default reaction from the dog at the onset of pressure, be it a prong collar, e-collar, to either freeze or flight,
right,
or to alleviate pressure. You want the first response like, oh, I feel pressure. What am I going to go do? Their first reaction is like, I'm about to go do something that I enjoy, that I get to get paid.
Yes.
Like, what are we doing?
Exactly.
That's what we want is we want the working dog's first reaction to work at the onset of pressure. And, it's confusing because to a lot of new people, especially, but even people that have been in this world forever that have only ever used e-collar to mean correction.